get started on our September 23rd joint conceptual workshop. I'll call the roll, and if you are here, please say aye. Commissioner Allen.
Here.
Franks. Absent. Commissioner Harrison. Absent. Commissioner Lindsay. Absent. Commissioner McLemore.
Present.
Commissioner Mann.
Here.
Commissioner Orr here. Alderman Peterson.
Here.
Alderman Williamson.
Here.
Oh, not Alderman, Commissioner Williamson. Alderman Berger.
Here.
Alderman McClendon. Absent. Alderman Speedy. Absent. Alderman Martin.
Here.
Alderman Barnhill. Alderman Blanton. Alderman Schroer. Mayor Moore.
Present and accounted for.
Very good. Thanks, everyone. Accommodations have been made to ensure that the public is able to view the meeting. The public may view the workshop in the following ways: watch the meeting on Franklin TV or the City of Franklin website, watch the live stream through the City of Franklin Facebook and YouTube accounts, attend in person in the boardroom. The public may also watch the meeting on the TV in the lobby. For the record, Commissioner Franks is now here. First item, do we have an applicant? This is a discussion of the development plan proposing 6,500 square feet of commercial building on 0.78 acres located at southwest corner of the intersection of Downs Boulevard and West Main Street. You got it.
Thank you. Adam Sager, I'm with Dale & Associates at 516 Heather Place in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm the applicant. We are the civil engineers for the project. And what we have is two properties down there at the corner of Downs and Main as you go down West Main Street. And then you hit the stoplight right there at Downs Boulevard. On the left, there'll be a church. On the right, it's vacant, that vacant 3-acre field. And over in front of you on the left is the Vulcan entrance area. And so this is on the right side as you're heading down West Main. And there we go. And so you can see this is two parcels of land. It's currently zoned OR. And what we're doing is really nothing that's a whole lot more than what's already there. What we're trying to do is something that is very appropriate and in context with Envision Franklin, which is to put a small neighborhood commercial building there. It just so happens that the tenant that wanted to go here is a optometric office. So that classifies as a clinic. And so as we're looking at this site to put this clinic, as it's classified in the code, we ran into a stumbling block in that the OR zoning district did not allow for the clinic. So we feel it's not an overreach to ask for small neighborhood commercial here, and it does fit with Envision Franklin. And a few items, site data is about 0.8 acres. That's for both properties. Current zoning's OR. We're asking for a PD, and I'm going to explain why we're asking for a PD here in a moment. It's in the neighborhood mixed use Envision Franklin, which calls out for retail, commercial, these types of uses. We're in Ward 4. And here's the layout. Because behind us is residential, and to the left of us are residential properties. There's about 3 or 4 of them that are existing older houses right there. We're coming down the corridor and we want to set the development pattern just for that corner, which is in line with what Envision Franklin has. And so what we want to do is a very nice, good-looking building that kind of sets the precedence for that corner and to carry it on. And it's very likely on a long enough timeline, those next few homes that are past that will likely develop as a small neighborhood kind of commercial as we head out of Franklin anyway. And so I don't know if everybody can, here, I'll turn around and go this way because do I have a laser? Well, it's not pointing, but I can talk through it. On the left side of your screen, if we rezone this to CC or CN, which is also within the confines of Envision Franklin. We have what's now introduced as a transitional buffer per y'all's code. And so because the older houses over on the left are still residential and haven't caught up to this yet, and if we want to set the precedence for the corner, we need to kind of carry this through and think about the future as it goes forward. And so if we have a transitional buffer, and again, it's kind of hard to, I don't have my laser pointer here, but you can see the transitional, there's a 25-foot transitional buffer on the left side, and it's kind of a dotted line there at the edge of the parking spaces. The next 50 feet over is Zone 2 transitional buffer, and then another 50 feet in is a Zone 3 transitional buffer. And you're left with the little postage stamp that isn't in the buffer anymore. And so the reason why we're requesting PD is because the PD affords us a process to allow us to ask for a modification of standards. So that's why we're bringing you guys a PD and not just CC or CN or straight zoning or something like that. And so that modification of standards that we're asking for is to simply allow us to have parking spaces over on the left side of the screen as you see them, so that this site can function properly with its proposed building. Again, we're not asking for anything too outrageous. I know this site has been looked at in the past. We're getting squeezed on all sides. There's right-of-way dedication. There's transitional buffers that have increased since the last time this site has been looked at. And so we're asking to put on, it's about 6,500 square feet as drawn. It's about 28 parking spaces shown on here. We're going to keep a healthy 25-foot buffer in the back where the existing residential is. And again, we want to do a really sharp-looking building to hopefully make this corner look really nice. Right now, it's 1 story of use. We're requesting 2 because that's what's already in the zoning, because we want to be able to have the architecture to be appropriate for this area. So it may have like a 1.5 story look. We're trying to tie in Franklin and modern and architecture of commercial and residential together on this corner. And so we have 2 on the application, but we're really only going to use 1. So it would be just 1 story of, right now the end tenant is an optometric practice. That's who's in line right now. They would not take up the whole building, so this would likely be 2 tenants, 2 bays of commercial space. The other tenant, the uses that we have put into the request would be small neighborhood commercial, like a clinic, chiropractor office, dental office, optometry office, offices, maybe a lawyer's office, architect, engineer type office, something like that, something small neighborhood. We also put in there a restaurant because everybody that we talk to like to see coffee shops on the corner, right? And so we just keep that in there in case that would ever be allowed. So here's the aerial image. You can see it's the building placement, and the whole front majority of the property is all in a field. The very back area, the back corner on the top left, has an existing stand of trees. We are proposing to get into about half of that, and then we're going to preserve that back 25 feet. These are some, oh, you want me to go back?
Where the 4 houses are.
Yeah, you can see 2 of them on your screen. On the left, you see where it says the number 1632,
Yeah.
and then 1636, those
Okay.
2. So those are the next 2 houses.
Okay, and then there are 2 more.
Yeah, I believe so. In fact, I'm going to go back. There we go. So there you can see the property, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, before you get to the next road.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Where's the church?
Well, the church is catty corner, directly across. Yeah, and then there's that, if you look up, there's about a 3-acre undeveloped commercial parcel. If you go back up Main Street, everything on either side is all zoned commercial, pretty much, as you go back up that way, and as you go right on Downs as well. And then the last slide we have, I'll fast forward up to there, is the architecture. This is an initial rendering. Obviously, these are not final drawings, but you can see we're trying to incorporate some residential transitional type of features, but yet have it be really nice looking and modern. And so these are some of the character images that we've pulled to start to point us in a direction of what we think the building might look like. So with that, thanks for your time. That's all I have for that, and I will be here if you have any questions.
Chair, for my staff, how many stories are allowed in office residential? Okay, well, while you look at that, I want to speak to this, because there's something that kind of disturbed me. Can you guys hear me well with my mask? Okay, I've never been accused of being quiet.
You want to let
'Cause-
staff go through their stuff first?
Okay, go ahead, because I want to be first to talk
Okay.
on this,
sure.
please.
You got it. Staff comments?
Yeah, just a brief comment. We are looking into the modification of standards to have parking and dumpster enclosures and drive aisle within that Zone 1 buffer, which is intended to be more for plantings, and we would like to see more plantings and screening between this lot and the neighboring or the adjacent residential lots. We are looking into that a bit more.
All right. Commissioner Allen?
One of the things I want to say about this, number one, I guess it kind of bothered me. First of all, for those who don't know, I want you to know that this borders on and is an historic neighborhood. It may not be mentioned in the Tennessee Historic Register, may not be historic for most of Franklin, but this is historic Rucker subdivision. This is the front side of historic Rucker subdivision for the black community of Franklin. And although, and something that was mentioned, because I don't want the people who own the two houses next to here to get the idea to come right back behind this and ask for, you're just talking about developing the next 4 houses. I will tell you that the Brights who own the 3rd house down will never sell, okay? So as far as making this commercial on down, this is historic as far as my community is concerned. And placing 2 stories with the rest of these residential houses and going down with the Brights and then the refugees and the Rucker sub behind theirs kind of gives me the willies. I talked to you guys about having established, well-established 1940s and 50s neighborhoods, and then we go in and stick a 2-story, I'll say monstrosity, not referring to your building, but in Rolling Meadows where we have 1-story homes, and then we go in and stick in a 2-story building that looks down on people's backyards, can look into their windows, and they just have to live with it. That's something I asked about several months ago, because we've had that happen. When in other neighborhoods we'll say, no, we've got to integrate, we've got to fit it into the existing neighborhood. And we're talking about houses that have been here for 50, 60 years. That's something to have a concern with. Wanted to say that. This very lot is where Henry Hardison, first black commissioner, Williamson County, this is his home place, okay? And as we have people go and die and all of their kids sell it off and all that, I just want to make sure that we talk about that. Now, we talked about this being office residential, but because this clinic, this doctor's office won't fit, and we upgrade, and then the next person comes in and says, oh, right next door we have this neighborhood commercial. I just want to pay attention to that. And just because this neighborhood, when we couldn't buy in town, couldn't buy out across, and black families were forced to move outside and go out to the county and move across from a rock crusher, build in commercial areas, and now we're going to say, let's further do that? I have a problem with that. And because nobody else is here to speak to that, I will. And as long as there's breath in me, I will be here. When the next one comes and wants to do that, I will be here. Just because we can doesn't mean we have to. I'm not speaking against this being neighborhood commercial. I was here when Envision Franklin was done. But as far as us talking about, oh, well, then we can keep doing it, and there's a right way to do it. Doesn't mean we have to allow this to be 2 and 3 stories when all these houses and people who've been here for 50, 60 years have 1 story. And I'm going to hush now, but I feel very strongly about how we do this in my neighborhoods and our neighborhoods when this is the only place we could establish neighborhoods. I'm done.
Thank you. Commissioner Franks, any comments?
There's been a lot of applicants look at the site, and it certainly needs to have an improvement there. So, I'm in favor. I like it. I think that architectural is a little bit, doesn't strike me as a great-looking building, but besides that, I think that it's a good use for the neighbors in that area.
Okay. Commissioner McLemore?
Thank you, Commissioner Allen made a lot of good points, and I can see it transitioning into the neighborhood. I think Commissioner Allen made a lot of good points. This is a historic neighborhood. As she said, it may not be listed on the National Registry of Historic Places, but we're losing so many homes and so many residences to gentrification, and things are changing so drastically. And I don't think that it would be transitioning or should transition into more commercial. And I don't really like the design of the building. I don't think it really fits the character of the neighborhood anyway. But I think she brought a lot of good points that I can really agree with.
Commissioner Mann?
Yeah, I have concern with the architecture of the building. I agree that it doesn't really seem to fit in with the neighborhood. Yeah, I'm sorry. I agree that it doesn't really fit into the neighborhood. I also have a concern with, perhaps maybe you could go back to the overlay. Yes, not, yeah, there. The next one.
Aerial?
Yes, sir. It looks like the driveway for 1632 encroaches upon your parcel. What do you intend, but then I didn't see any accommodation for that in your site plan. What do you have plans for there, for that?
Yeah, we're gonna create a new paved driveway for them. So the driveway stays as access. The driveway would be converted to a paved driveway right here.
Okay, so
Comes out
you'll,
onto
to
West
access their property, it will need to enter your property and it will be paved
Correct.
from the moment they cross that property line. Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, that's all.
Okay, thank you. My turn. So I have to agree on the architecture. I don't think it really fits the character of that area, and I appreciate Commissioner Allen bringing up some historic facts. If this does move forward, I think it'd be nice to call it a Hardison building, to lock in some of that historic aspects.
Commissioner Orr, can I make a comment? You guys have talked about architecture. I want to point out that in this one case, every once in a while our calendars align where the applicant hasn't received their first round of initial comments from staff before presenting here. So one of the comments staff has is that the architecture would need to be modified. It's a requirement of the zoning ordinance that buildings have a parapet. So it would need to change from a sloped roof to one that's more horizontal. That will change the character of the architecture. So I wanted you to be aware of that. And
That's
the
good.
applicant isn't aware because he hasn't gotten his comments yet. So
He is now.
yeah, heads up.
Thank you. Commissioner, Alderman Peterson?
I attended, maybe it was on Zoom, the neighborhood meeting on this, and I think the people who lived right around there were thinking, maybe okay, but I'm not positive about that. I didn't go back and look at any notes or anything like that. But as I understand it, I drove out there at that time, but I didn't drive back again. West Main is kind of commercial until it gets almost to Downs, right? Think about West
Parts
Main.
of it are.
Yeah.
Booker Trailer Park has people living in it.
Oh, that's
Across
true.
the street, Booker's, there are parts that goes in and out, in and out. Mm-hmm. It's converting as you go.
Yeah, well, yeah. But I too think that the architecture needs to be different.
Commissioner Williamson?
For me, I think I might have some concern about the two-story height. Just being that you have kind of residential, and I know as far as levels, commercial level 1, 2 is different than the height of a residential building, especially them being older, they're probably not gonna be as high. So that would just be, a concern of mine. The other, Commissioner Mann had brought up was just about the driveway considerations, and you answered that question. And yeah, everybody said it before, the modern architecture, something more historic, traditional, might fit in with the adjacent fabric, so.
Yeah, I'll talk to Mike about the architecture, and we'll certainly work on that. And I did want to clarify, as we have it drawn, it is one story. We just left it as two in the application because that's what's already allowed. So, you know, one story is not a problem for
Okay.
what we're doing.
Okay.
That's how it's drawn, so.
Alderman Berger, comments?
So, to me, you know, if you go down Main Street, you've got all commercial, basically, and office. So, that corner, busy corner, you wouldn't want to put residential in that corner. You've got catty corner, you've got a church, you've got a rock company and an open field that's going to get developed sooner or later. So, you know, I see this as a pretty good use for that area. If you do some kind of coffee shop on the end, which would probably be good for West Main on this very end, because everybody has to drive all the way into town to get anything, and this is a heavy traveled road. This is busy. So maybe putting that in there, do you have enough room to put a place where people could actually drive through and get a coffee?
Well, it's, what the challenges we're gonna face on a coffee shop is that you would have to take the square foot area of the building and have part of it be so much, not require a lot of parking, and then dedicate the remainder of the parking to the restaurant, because the parking requirements for a restaurant are so much more. And so it would eat up too much space. This is, I'd love to say, yeah, we could do it, and we're leaving that option open. But it's not planned to be a coffee shop right now. We just left the option open in case we could figure it out.
Is the parking requirements different for a coffee shop like versus a restaurant? No? I don't know why not. It would be,
But
would be.
that's why we did leave the option open.
Yeah.
In case we can figure it out in the
Yeah,
future.
because no matter what kind of beverage, whether it be a smoothie place or whatever, anything that goes in there is going to want a way to get, you know, a drive-through or a drive-up window at least. The other thing, I think I agree with everybody would say at the end of West Main, you need a more traditional-looking structure for architecture. But I think, what else are you going to put on that corner? This sounds like a really good use. But at the same time, it all depends on design. A lot of design would be enhancing that area. And also, you look at the four corners there and say what is going to be, your intensive use is probably very low. So that would be a good thing. That's my comments.
Thank you.
Alderman Berger, I do want to clarify. I was wrong. There are a different set of requirements between a sit-down restaurant and a drive-through, but there's not room to accommodate a drive-through restaurant here, so he would have to be working with the sit-down restaurant option.
So nothing to accommodate any kind of drive-up or drive-through? Nothing? Yeah, that's usually, that's not going to happen then, because most people want that today.
Alderman Martin's next.
I'll just take this.
Okay. You'd think we'd know how to talk after all these years. A building in Franklin is different from everywhere else. And what you've presented, and the way you presented it, and the way you described the architecture and all, this is really good in your eyes. For us, it's a mess, because it doesn't have anything to do with this neighborhood. And what these two women have talked about is the historical value of this neighborhood. And what I would like to see you do in planning your building is to consider these four houses and even enhance them into the neighborhood. Make them a part of this corner, or make the corner a part of them. But do something for them too, because this really is it's really a historical neighborhood. And we want to keep it. We really do. And I think you can do that. It'll take a little work. It'll be challenging because it's much easier to build this thing than it would be to what we're talking about, probably. Because this is where the society's going now, but Franklin's not. So consider that when you work on this. Thank you.
Mayor Moore.
I'd like a little bit of explanation of what you anticipate as far as the traffic flow. I'm a little confused at it. I don't know how far those driveways are into the property from the intersection, and I have a lot of concern about the driveway off of the property into the neighbor's house. To me, that looks like you're inviting them to sell so you can develop the next lot. I don't know, it just looks like a big safety concern to me. So if you'd explain what you vision for the traffic flow.
Yeah, great question, and that was brought up by staff as well. There's two things to look at as far as those two driveway access points. Is one, there is an existing driveway to that existing house, and we didn't want to take that away. And so we wanted to keep something there for that house to continue on because it does encroach onto our property. And so we're just simply trying to maintain what's already there for their service as they've always known it without having to just say, hey, you're on our property.
Well, show me how they're
kick
gonna
them off.
drive into their property, and show me how the people who are gonna visit the eye doctor are gonna drive in.
Sure. So if you are coming, we'll give a cross-access easement through the whole site. And so if you live at that house, you can come in off of West Main, and then we allotted that driveway right there that lines up right back into their existing parking area where they currently park. And so we are not attempting to disrupt that location at all. What we're trying to do is say, hey, look, we're not going to wipe out your driveway and say, try again because you're on our property. We're trying to accommodate them by keeping the driveway in generally the same area off of West Main and then provide them a paved access over there. It's currently a gravel
Show me where
driveway.
their old driveway is on that.
There's a minor dash, yeah, right there. Dash line, it's right close of it. And so then, the other thing we want to consider about is the volume of traffic and the location of being next to Downs and Main, which is a well-traveled intersection. And so we pulled the access off of Downs, which is the lesser road of the two by classification. Downs is slightly lesser than Main on classification, and we pulled the main access for the commercial off of Downs and pulled it as far away as from the intersection as we could. That's a two-way intersection in, and most of the traffic, based upon the people who are looking at this and based upon some studies we've looked at, we believe most of the traffic will come in and out of Downs.
So what's the front of the building?
It'll have two fronts. We want it to have two facades. Yeah. There you go. So it's on a corner, so it wants to have two fronts, and then we have the people who are going to come to the building and go to the eye doctor or the chiropractor or wherever. You want that facade also to be nice. So we want this thing looking nice from three sides. I mean, this is something that we will put a lot of architecture in, and I do have a question for y'all because obviously architecture is kind of a lightning rod on this one. Amy mentioned earlier, I have not seen comments, and you said a parapet, which is going to be an architecture that is going to have more of a square look with, think of downtown Main Street type of look with a parapet. If that's the case, and then I hear there's also architecture about mimicking existing historic houses, those two don't go together, and so I just want you to be aware of that and also ask for any input if there is something about architecture, you could provide feedback, and then I can go back to the architect and try to do it.
I'm glad you brought that up. I think it's a good point to make that the existing zoning right now is office residential, and that requires the house building type. That the building has to look like a house, but it could be an office or it could be a residence. You know, in the PD district, you're allowed to choose from a list of building types. Adam's chosen commercial because he's using a commercial building. It might be nice to provide feedback. Would you prefer to see a house building type even though it's an office use, or would you prefer more of a commercial building, like a downtown building with a square roof, you know, a parapet, a flat facade.
It would fit the neighborhood character better by being a house building site. And I liked Mike's idea about naming it, or having Hardison's.
Yes,
Can you-
I
Can you
love
hear
that.
me?
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I have to lean over. But anyway, what I was saying is, as opposed to having it so commercial looking and looking like downtown Franklin, we're not trying to recreate a building
No.
on the corner of West Main for a neighborhood, historic neighborhood, with that type of design. So to me, a house-type building that would look like a house and still be able to just bring in as much historic elements as we can as you plan this development.
Okay.
Yeah, I've-
Especially with only needing one floor for the use.
Right.
It makes it quite a bit easier to go to the house type.
Yeah, and I would agree with that, just making it look like a house, especially that it seems like a lot of it, the rezoning has to do with the use of a clinic. So, yeah.
Exactly, I agree.
Okay.
So how far to the corner from those driveways?
And also show that other driveway if you would, because, you know, whenever you show the black and white thing.
Yeah, it
No,
might
no,
be
keep
hard
on,
to-
keep on, that one right there. See, the other, the main driveway in is gonna be up north, or, I mean, up to the top there.
On Downs, you mean?
Yeah, mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's,
But see, and I'm not sure that was pointed out
Yeah.
today.
Well, my question is, why do you need to split the drive that way, and why not just move their drive back over on their property and give them a paved drive or something?
well, we can certainly look at that as well. You can see it's pretty tight right now. It's up against the house.
It is.
We're trying to be respectful and not get onto their property or disrupt it.
But
The
incorporate,
reason why we're showing the split, the right in, right out split, there's a power pole there. And also because we heard from staff that we want to try to limit the left turns in from
Yeah.
Main Street because of the intersection.
Yeah.
We're close to an intersection. And so we're trying to accommodate multiple aspects of this. And we feel like we've come up with a good solution.
well, why don't you just go straight up and let them share the drive then bend it back into the parking?
See, he can't do the right in, he's gotta do the right in, right
Right in,
out.
right
No.
out.
See,
If we show it straight, then people will be tempted to turn left out of there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to,
No,
I'm
no,
trying to
I'll
really
say
swing
leave it where
to-
you got it.
Okay.
The right in, right out, but straighten the line up on the left side. Just let it be a wider paved path through there.
And the power pole, you said
if you
there's a power
look, if you
pole?
look at what's
Down
out
in the
there
pork chop,
already,
there's a power pole.
if you look at what's out there already, this may be getting it up to the house a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I want you to answer my question again.
Yeah, let me come
I
back
don't
to
think
you.
you've ever answered it.
What's that?
I
You
want
wanted
you to
the
get in your
distance?
car and drive in there, and I also want you to get in your car and drive into that house. And I also want to know the distance from the driveway on Downs to the corner and from whatever this other triangular something is, however that functions. That's what I need to understand, please.
Okay. I'm just gonna walk over. So this house right here, you're driving, if you are coming from Downs, you'll have a cross-access into it, enters off of Downs, come down through here, and here's where they always park. This is their existing driveway, comes right down through here. If you're leaving, and you want to go right, you can come this way and turn out right. If you're leaving, you need to go up Downs, you can go up Downs and turn left. If you come out Downs and turn right, come down to the light, you go left on West Main. And that would be for this house. If you're coming down West Main from downtown Franklin into this house, you'll pull into the right here, and you'll go right over to here. If you're going to the clinic, to the building that we're proposing, and you're coming from Downs, you just take a right in, and then now you're in the parking lot in the same way leaving. If you're coming this way, you're gonna take the right in, and you have to leave. And let's say you're coming from Downs, say you're coming from West Haven, and you come down Downs Boulevard, you take a right in there, you can even take a left and get back out right away. The other thing we looked at, and we looked at this with staff, we could take a right here, and then loop back around too, if the traffic is challenging in that area. And so it's got multiple ways to get in and out. And then Mayor, to answer your question about the distance from here down to the intersection, you're looking at about, I think, I don't have it right now, but I can do this. That's
Adam, I've got it for you over here if you need it. So the entrance off of West Main, we measure from the end of the radius to the other end of the other radius. That's about 100 feet on West Main. And on Downs, I'm measuring around 120 feet from the intersection to the entrance drive off Downs. So 100 on West Main and 120 on Downs.
To the end of radius.
Right.
And so what we've tried to do is pull those as far away from that intersection as possible. You can see up on Downs, we push that all the way up against that transition buffer all the way.
Is that what you needed?
Yep, I appreciate it.
Good.
Thanks.
Well, let's finish up this item on that, answer that last question and move on to the next one. We're over our time for that. Thank you.
Oh, I was just going to say, as you think about this, you could add some interpretive markers, like AutoZone. If you go to AutoZone, and they've got, it's a little area called Belltown. There was an African-American community. And
Yes.
back there, they've got some interpretive markers that are on the building. I don't know how you could interject that in there, but that would be something that would bring the neighborhood, you know,
About
create
markers up.
a historic significance to the neighborhood as well. Because Reverend William Scruggs and Henry Hodgson, they were civil rights leaders in Franklin,
Yes.
and they made a huge difference, and they lived in the neighborhood where
Yes.
Marcia lives now. So these kind of things that would help add to the significance and to bring the history, tie the history into your building.
Get with us and get with me, I can get you some information, okay?
Yeah, we can
All right.
certainly take that into
Okay.
consideration. So,
All right.
Thank you.
thank you all.
Item number 2, discussion of the development plan proposing a mixed-use building with 9,200 square feet of commercial space and 297 multifamily units on 7.53 acres located at 151 Cool Springs Boulevard. Do we have an applicant?
Hi, I'm Katie Rudowski. I am the applicant. I'm with Kaiser Vogren Design. We're a local landscape architecture and land planning firm in Franklin. We have tonight the developer, Geffen Development, and also design team members from Kimley Horn and EDI. And as you mentioned, we're here tonight to discuss the site located at 151 Cool Springs Boulevard. We've submitted a development plan and rezoning applications. So if you look at the screen, our site, again, is located at 151 on Cool Springs. So Cool Springs being south of the red dot being our site. To the north, you have Legends Golf Course, and to the left, you have an MOB, or medical office building, and then you have 2 vacant properties to the east and west of 151. The property, there we go. So this zoning map shows the existing zoning. All of the parcels to the east and west of us are RC6 or regional commerce. Vanderbilt Legends Golf Club is a PD planned district. This is a proposed zoning map of what we're requesting with this application. We would like to request 151 Cool Springs Boulevard to be a PD planned district from the RC6 regional commerce that it currently is. As part of this project and in joint efforts with the city and adjacent property owners, our intent is to provide access points that I'll show for clarity in a second. From Cool Springs Boulevard as a right-in, right-out. So if the pointer's working, I know it wasn't. So if you can see from Cool Springs Boulevard, the private drive to the east or to the west of our site. Yep, thanks, Joey. That would be a right-in, right-out. And then we would also have direct access from our site 151 through lot 2 or from 201 Cool Springs Boulevard to access the light directly across from Windcross Court. This new intersection will provide safety and access to the 4 parcels from this new road. So 4 parcels being 201 Cool Springs Boulevard, our site 151, the MOB at 125 Cool Springs Boulevard, and the site to our west 101 Cool Springs Boulevard. This is a representation of the proposed site plan. Haven at Cool Springs proposes a single 6-story mixed-use building. The development plan that was actually originally submitted included 297 multifamily units. However, I would like to clarify, in discussions most recently with engineering, we are actually now making slight modifications to this plan to propose 272 multifamily units, which is a reduction of 25 units from the plan. And this is actually due to a requested shift in the drive aisle to bring it further off of Cool Springs Boulevard. So I mentioned earlier there will be a right in, right out at Cool Springs Boulevard on this plan that, yes, exactly, labeled private drive. So that access into our site right off of Cool Springs is going to get pushed slightly further north to bring it further off Cool Springs Boulevard. That is not shown in this illustrative today. Things that are not changing, the ground floor fronting Cool Springs Boulevard will include approximately 9,200 square feet of commercial use space. There will still be 5 live-work units with individual pedestrian access to each of those units, along with 3 levels of parking below the building footprint to provide direct residential access to each floor. One thing I probably didn't mention is that this site from Cool Springs Boulevard to the golf course is approximately 50 feet in grade change. So there's a significant change in grade that we're accommodating through this building. The parking, of course, then would be screened from view from Cool Springs Boulevard and contributes to solving this grade change. A majority of the residential units are sited to take advantage of views to Spencer Creek, the golf course, and Roper's Knob. Also included are 2 sizable amenity courtyards for the residents that will include a swimming facility and landscape amenities. The site also includes a great deal of floodplain and floodway to the north or rear to the site, planned north here. The building and parking are intended to be built entirely outside of these areas with minimal, if any, impacts to the existing conditions of the tree canopy in Spencer Creek. Also, in coordination with Franklin Planning staff and the Parks Department, we're proposing to continue the extension of the Greenway Trail that currently leads to Aspen Grove Park, which is east of our site. The bold red line in this graphic distinguishes on-site improvements, while the dashed red line replicates off-site improvements that we do intend to work with the adjacent property owner to tie into the existing trail, which is shown in purple to the east, that connects to Aspen Grove Park. The existing sidewalks along Cool Springs Boulevard, of course, would remain. Our team has also met with planning staff and the fire marshal to discuss fire access around the building. A drive aisle designed along the perimeter of the building shall act as the fire access lane to provide 360 degrees of access to the building. And you can see that in this graphic here to the north and east. Here's a few architectural massing studies, and shortly I'll actually share a video for you guys that hopefully better explains the grade differential of the site. But the first image is actually from Cool Springs Boulevard. This is if you were going down the private drive towards the MOB office. You can see here that the leasing office is set a little bit below grade, and that's due to that grade change we have occurring. The image to that is just below that is also from Cool Springs Boulevard. Now this image doesn't depict, there's about a 10-foot grade change from Cool Springs Boulevard to our building, but it does show the drive aisle and the access to the commercial spaces that would be facing Cool Springs on the ground floor here. These are 2 depictions that you would see from the rear of the site. This is actually how the parking garage is terraced into the existing grade change. There would, as I said before, there would be 3 stories of parking. The first floor of parking would be directly under the units. These are elevations of the current architecture. And the top one is facing Cool Springs Boulevard. Again, more elevations from the rear of the property. Shows the parking garage levels. And then from here, we'll show you a quick video. So there's no volume, so I'll try to talk through this. So this is coming in off of Cool Springs. This would be the front of the building that you would see from the road. This takes you down the fire access lane to the east of the building. Wraps it around, you can see the tiers of parking. There will be amenities on the site. This would be one of those outdoor amenities. And there would be another interior amenity that you don't see in this rendering. This brings us back to the private drive that would then access or get you access to the MOB. You can see there, that's where the where you access the garage. And then it brings us back around to where the leasing office would be located. And then to finish, these are the locations of the proposed amenities. So that wraps up my presentation, and we're open for questions.
Do you have any staff comments on this one?
Nothing further at this time.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Allen?
No comments at this time.
Commissioner Franks?
Yeah, I feel like that it's pretty ordinary, the design. I'm not in favor of that huge box there, and it's all framed, and, you know, I don't, you know, the design itself and the layout looks good, and I think you've done a good job there, but that big box look is right in your face going down Cool Springs Boulevard. It's a huge, I think the architectural needs to have a little work done to it and have a little layering effect, or, is there any retail or a restaurant or any associated with it?
Yes, the intent would be that the southeast corner of the building would have a retail space, and then there would be a leasing space on the other side.
What about you?
Commissioner McLemore?
Is the multifamily going to be all apartments? I'm sorry. The multifamily, is it going to be all apartments?
I'll have our owner, David, come up. He's with Gavin Development, and I'll have him speak to that.
Thank you. The initial business plan is for the residential to be operated as a rental, but we're building it to condo specifications, so potential for condo conversion later.
Okay, because we had some staggering numbers a couple of meetings ago. We had about almost 9,000 in the pipeline of apartments, and we've encouraged and tried to ask people to integrate for sale units into their developments. And so that's the reason I asked that question. So I think
Sure.
you should consider it.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Mann?
I echo Commissioner Franks as far as the architectural goes. It does look a little bit boxy, looks a little bit standard. So it could probably use a little massaging there. But I do like the layout. I think it's a really unique and thoughtful way to use the parking and help put it below grade. So overall, I think it's a nice project.
Myself, I'd agree with the other commissioners about the architecture. I'll take another dig there. If I didn't know any better by reading the description, I would think it was a hospital instead of an apartment complex. It was very flat front, and even though the colors were different, it looked very plain. No balconies for the residences or anything like that. And echo the other comments about, you know, that this is far from the interstate to have another 300 and something rental units. I'd much rather it be office building of some type at this location. Alderman Peterson.
No comment. For the lot with the drop down in the back, I think the design, the way that they fixed this, I think is pretty good. I like the parking under, because, and as I say, and there is a pretty steep decline there, you said the 50 feet, so I think they've done well.
Yeah, I think the light access, especially for all the adjacent properties, is going to be a nice asset. I know it's quite difficult if you're coming from the west going eastbound on Mac Hatcher to get into that existing one. You have to go around and do a U-turn. I like also to see that there's plans for extending that trail. That's great to see, and I think for the residents there, it'll definitely be a very nice asset. It's a beautiful park area that you're connecting to. As far as the architecture, it is rather monolithic. While there's definition of materials, everything's kind of in plane with the same plane. It'd be nice to see just the physical massing broken up more, just so that you don't get more of that box look. Yeah, just maybe like, especially on the cap feature, if that can be maybe pushed back, and so that your material definitions represent a change in massing as well. So.
Alderman Berger.
I would agree with those comments too. The facade, I've seen this, and the facade needs to be, although it's broken up, the different planes are broken up and look different, which is good. I like that. But I think it is very boxy. I like the fact that you have some standalone, you have live-work units, and you have some commercial on the bottom. That's a good thing. Talked about that before. But I think the overall layout was really done well with the parking in the back and everything. But I'm a little concerned, more I look at this, that the parking design, which is done well, I just don't think that this, where this is located, you're really missing, and I think I've said this before, you're really missing the back view of that beautiful golf course. There should be some really great outdoor space in the back that takes in that view. You've got inside the circular view from the top down, you see the swimming pool and the amenities there, but it's not open to enjoy that view, and I'm a little concerned about that you're missing that. And the other thing that, I know there's only 272 units here, and I know that the banks are lending for the apartments, but we really need condos for sale. People beg me to say all the time, we want to move out of our houses, we want to move into some condos, but there's nothing available and we want to stay in Cool Springs. Constantly here. I should go into the realty business for that, because honestly, it does not a week go by that somebody doesn't ask me about a condo in Cool Springs. So anyway, just want to make that comment.
Alderman Martin.
I agree with most everything that's been said, and I have no further comments, except I'm just overwhelmed at the size and the appearance of this apartment complex.
Agree. Alderman Schroer.
I have no comment.
Sorry. Mayor Moore.
Nothing additional, a lot of good points made.
All right. Yes.
One thing I forgot to say, that's right. I think this was mentioned, and I don't know if anything's been done with it, but the view to the back over that pretty area, open area, they were talking possibly about doing something on the rooftop, and I don't know if that's still a possibility or not, but you certainly could utilize that rooftop and utilize that view.
Good comment. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 3, discussion of a development plan proposing 10 single-family homes and retaining an existing home on 12 acres located at the intersection of Glass Lane and Boyd Mill Avenue. Have an applicant?
Yes, thank you. Adam Sager, Dale and Associates, 516 Heather Place. Joining me is Jason Goddard, who's helped on the project, and Bernie Butler. They're going to be able to help better present some of the historic features of it. I'm more just the engineer. I don't, I don't get to do all the pretty historic stuff, but I will introduce the project for you. And I think y'all probably know where this is. It's not really too far from us right now. You go out Highway 96, and there's Glass Lane, and on our left is Boyd Mill and Jim Warren Park, and right between it is a slice of about 12 acres, and it's a beautiful property. An old historic home sits there, and here I'm bringing up the zoning district in Vision Franklin, zoning right now is R2, is that right? R1, I'm sorry, I was looking over on the right side. And we are about 12 acres, there it is, currently zoned R1, going to a PD, creating a very unique environment, a very unique historic property here. We're going to ask for a total of 11 lots, one of which is the historic house that already sits on the property, and then we're asking for 10 more new lots in addition to that. This is the layout, and just to orient you, we rotated it 90 degrees so that it fits on the page. North is to your left, that's Highway 96. Glass Lane is up on the top of your page. Boyd Mill Avenue is on your bottom, and then there's that little cut through, and then Boyd Mill is actually on the right side as well. So we're bounded by basically 4 roads on all 4 sides of the property. And there is an existing historic drive that kind of comes right in through the center that comes up to the mansion. And we are following that drive coming in off of Boyd Mill on the south side. We're trying to preserve that entryway, the trees, keep that sense of place, of have it to be beautiful as you pull in to an old historic mansion. Along the left side of this drive is going to be 10 single-family lots, all designed to be historic in nature and to complement Magnolia Hall. And then the lake that's already out there, we're going to preserve the lake and enhance it, and keep that to be an amenity for the area. And so that's the gist of the layout. We are asking for modification of standards. There are a few modification of standards that we're asking for. And one is that, and I know Bernie and Jason can talk more into the historic and where it's been and the story behind it, but I do want to mention from a technical standpoint that through the talks with the neighbors and through analyzing the site and looking at it, along Boyd Mill is a little bit challenging, and Glass Lane it's okay, it's kind of grassy, but as you get to the north side of Glass Lane, up there by the lake, it drops off the road really steep. And as you get up to Highway 96, right up against the pavement there's a guardrail, and then it drops down to that lake pretty steep. We're trying to leave that alone. And so we're asking for a modification of standards to not put sidewalks in along that perimeter of the property. And so just letting you know that's one modification of standards. Number 2 is the internal street that goes through the property. The look we're going for is rural, small, rural, quaint, historic. And so we're trying to shrink this road. We don't want it to be a big, brand new public road. We want to kind of draw out that history. So if you look at what they did at Harlansdale, where you have more of almost like an exposed aggregate kind of look on the driveway, and kind of narrow it up and do 6-inch granite curbs and make this look really beautiful and nice. And that is requiring us to ask for modification of standards. We are not putting in a sidewalk along that road. That's not what we're proposing. And we're proposing to do a road that doesn't fully meet the exact standards of a full brand new public Franklin Road, because that's not what this is. The goal is. It's supposed to be historic and kind of fit the time and place of the existing home. So I'll leave that with, let me go through. That's me, and I'll go back to the plan right here. And then I'm going to turn it over to Bernie. You want to go next? And he'll be able to tell you more about the story of it.
Hey, thank you, guys. We've been working on this for 2 years, working with staff and everybody trying to create a plan. The only goal I had from the start was to find a way to save Magnolia Hall and create perfect. And so when they asked me how many lots we wanted, I said whatever perfect is. And so the reason we've taken two years to work on it is to try to figure out what perfect was. And we were close to perfect about maybe 3 months ago, 60 days ago. And we had our second neighborhood meeting. We had a first neighborhood meeting when we had to do the Envision Franklin Amendment. But our second neighborhood meeting was a little more lively and encouraging, actually, to me. And I think that was, the process of the way people care about things in Franklin is a refreshing thing to somebody like me, because what we want is we want everything that we're doing in the historic district to be perfect, and in this town that we love so much. So the result of that second neighborhood meeting was that I realized that we basically just needed to do whatever we had to do to try to create perfect. And that was, we reduced another 2 lots. We moved all the lots to the Jim Warren side of the property. We didn't want to create the neighborhood plan like you would have in West Haven or somewhere else with sidewalks everywhere and asphalt streets and all that stuff. We wanted to create this rural flavor of this 1840s National Register historic home that's been in the dang National Geographic. And so this road is going to go through those old maples, and it's going to feel like that Harlansdale Road, and it's going to feel like that existing pebble driveway, although it'll be a hard surface. And it will have granite curbs. We have 50-foot setbacks on those first 5 lots off of that road. And and there'll be a 4-rail fence around the property, but we're not changing the existing shrubs that are on Glass Lane. We're not trying to change the context of what the experience is for the people that live along Glass Lane, with one exception, and that's to try to fix this sewage pond that is called a lake at the moment, which the people that live on Glass Lane will tell you that all through the summer, that's exactly what it smells like. And so I can tell you, guys that are going to be having to vote on this thing in the future, that the modification of standards that we're asking for are to create a very special neighborhood with houses that are reflective of the Magnolia Hall and respectful of Magnolia Hall, that feels more like the houses along 4th Avenue South, 1.5-story, full architectural porches and things like that, so that they don't take away from Magnolia Hall. And then we've kept the whole front yard of Magnolia Hall the same. The lake, by the way, is going to take some work, and it's our intent to create something that we maintain forever. And if we need to put up a bond so the city knows they don't ever have to think about it or worry about it 75 years from now when the neighborhood's different or whatever, we'll do it. But it's an important piece of the property, and we want to get it right, but it is not right. And I know that's a little, there's all kind of hoop jumping involved in that, but we need to get it right now. So we're asking for these modification of standards to try to do this as perfectly as we can. And I will say that the result of that second neighborhood meeting is that I believe every single person that from the neighborhood that has shown up and has cared, and I've had 2 additional neighborhood meetings since that second neighborhood meeting that I did on my own. And I can tell you that every one of them, to a person, can't wait for the opportunity to stand in front of this microphone and tell you how important this house is and why they're supporting this project. And I've done a lot of projects here. I've never had people show up at a project and tell you not to do something I was working on, but I've never had a neighborhood show up and tell you why you should. And we have one chance to do this beautifully for the next hundreds of years that it's here. And so I hope as we go through this process over the coming months, that you'll get as excited about it as I am of getting Ann Inman out of this house. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff?
Similar to the first applicant, actually, all applicants tonight have not received their comments yet from staff. So this couple things may be not a surprise, but well, let's just continue. So the modifications for sidewalk, to alleviate the requirement, each location will have to be its own individual modification request. As you all are aware, the zoning ordinance and all of our documents are written to both encourage, promote, and require the installation of sidewalks. So we are still fully reviewing and vetting out these requests, but staff will more than likely stick with the zoning ordinance to promote the construction of sidewalks. So, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Allen?
Well, that was going to be my comment, actually. One of them was going to be about the sidewalks. The other was going to was whether you guys were going to have this as a private street, because that was going to be my other, was that I knew that staff was more than likely, and myself, I was going to ask if this was not going to be built to city standards, was the developer, were you guys going to request this be a private street? Because if it's built not to city standards, I know it's going to be held to maintain in the future, which will require the city to spend more money when you've had to put down salt. Because one of the things I know, because I was up here preaching about historic, and I'm all about preservation, but the thing comes about when we were talking about city money to maintain something that's not a standard street or built with standard things that, even with standard streets, when you come with maintenance, it's more money. So that was one of the things that I wanted to put out there. That is a concern of mine. I'm speaking for Marcia Allen there. Okay. But anyway, better plan, by the way, it looks like than what I saw before. Not seeing the details, it does look better than what I saw before. All right.
Commissioner Franks?
I like the plan, I like the redesign of it. The lake, it's a beautiful lake there, and I remember as a kid growing up fishing in that lake, so I know that that lake's fed by spring, and, it needs to, hopefully staff will work with you in engineering and help you clean that lake up and let it be a fine asset there. It looks great from the highway there. Are you proposing not to run sidewalks in on those 10 lots, 11 lots? You are?
No.
You will have sidewalks?
We will not.
They're planning not to.
We're trying to create this rural flavor in the inside that fence. So that, and Marcia.
It's Marcia. It's Marcia.
Mary Pierce and others were, and I think, and this started because they 100% didn't want sidewalks in and around Magnolia Hall.
Right.
On that side of the street.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so what we were trying to do is, like at Harlansdale, there's no sidewalks, and there's plenty of room for people to walk inside it, but no sidewalks as it's shown.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner McLemore?
What about the lake? Will it be HOA, will they be taking care of that? Or, because, we got the situation at Liberty Hills, and you don't want that same thing to happen. So you, as the developer, you will be taking care of correcting all the issues with the lake, and then the HOA will take it over? What is the story on that?
Well, the story on the lake is it's got to be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And truthfully, it was fixed back in 70s, and it just hadn't been taken care of,
Mm-hmm.
which is your point exactly. The HOA is going to be set up much like I've done the HOA at Arlington. So the intent of these 10 houses is more than likely
Mm-hmm.
is that these are homes that are bought by people that live in a couple of 3 places. And so the HOA fees are going to take care of all of the maintenance of all the landscaping on anything that you can see inside the 4 rail fences. And so part of that maintenance of that pond is going to be part of the HOA. And my thought was that I understand that particular situation, and I don't think there's any issue really with just maintaining a bond that the neighborhood maintains a bond that so the city doesn't have to worry about it ever being an issue. If something crazy happened, there would be money to fix it. But the pond is an asset, but it's only really today an asset in the winter. I mean, I have a picture from last winter that looks like something you'd see on a calendar that they sell at Barnes and Noble. I mean, that old spring house that we're going to restore, that old spring house so that it looks like it's supposed to. I mean, it's a stunning, beautiful old spot, but in the winter.
Yeah, you just don't want the residents coming back to the city later on saying, we got this issue and and wanting the city sympathy on how to fix it and using city money to try to correct an issue that
We won't have
could
it.
possibly occur. So something needs to be in
No,
place
we're going to
for
set the
that.
money aside so that it's never a question through a bond.
Okay.
Commissioner Mann?
I don't have any further comments. They were addressed. My only concern was the maintenance of the road and the pond. And it sounds like you are, have a number of ideas that could potentially solve that.
The only comment I have, I just look forward to seeing the project proceed in some manner.
Thank you. I would say that we would love that street to be private, but the reality is the way that, what is it, Amy, the way that the ordinance or whatever's written, because y'all had a situation with a private drive somewhere else, and I'm out of my league talking about it, but there's a reality that for us to try to get you guys to approve the private drive for us to take care of is a longer process than we can stand at the moment. So I don't know. We don't want y'all to take care of the street. We're just doing what we have to do to get it approved at this point.
Alderman Peterson?
I have not watched the second neighborhood meeting, but I do remember the first one, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people who are pleased that you've located the lots over on that side instead of the Glass Lane side. I noticed that, right on the lot, I guess it's the fence line where it is right now, there are a lot of trees and brush and stuff like that on there. Would any of that get to be saved?
All of it's saved.
Okay.
Yeah, we're saving it all because somebody named John Schroer wanted to see the exact same thing out the side of their house. And Judge Woodruff and everybody else on Glass Lane. And so literally that side of Glass Lane with all those bushes
Oh, I'm thinking about
and the side by Jim Warren Park,
Yes.
all that's just staying exactly the same.
Staying the same.
That's what I was really looking at,
So,
since you'd moved them.
yeah, so we're
lots
trying
is-
to minimally affect what Magnolia Hall looks like today, with one exception, and that is pruning up those maple trees, pruning up those trees in front of Magnolia Hall so that you can actually, for the first time, see it and understand that the front of Magnolia Hall faces Boyd Mill, not 96. So everybody that thinks Magnolia Hall thinks the front is on the lake side, and it's this side, but they can't see it.
And fixing the lake will be very important today. It's just.
Well, please
But anyway.
communicate that to your engineering department. Thank you.
Commissioner Williamson?
We always get thrown under the bus, okay.
Yeah.
They've been incredibly helpful. They're trying to help.
Okay. I think the question I have is probably more towards staff, just about consequences of not meeting road standards. So.
Yes, we're looking at that now, and some of the things that we think we could agree with is the reduced right-of-way width. That was one request, which, as long as we can maintain the road, there's no real issue there. Some of the things we have talked about is pavement type, which we have an annual paving contractor we like to keep on the same schedule, same material. That makes things a lot cheaper. As soon as you change pavement type, it gets more expensive. And then some different types of curb material and things like that. Generally speaking, we always want to stick with our standards as much as we can, but there are some things we can work with them on this, as long as they're not material cost differences.
Okay.
So that's what we're looking at now.
Yeah, because I think the vision of the design is very, very nice, especially next to a historic house. But I'd like to see that work also with the city standard. So I know it's going to be a back and forth and see what can happen.
Everybody's trying their best to help.
Alderman Berger?
I love this. I think you're doing a great job by putting this together the way you are. I love the road material. I love the low curbs. I love the size of the road. Not everything fits in the same box. And every time we do this, what's the consequences of not meeting the road standards? I get that, but that doesn't fit everywhere. If we want everything in a neat little box, then let's just put everything in a neat little box and let's all look alike all over town. And I don't say that to dig on you at all for what you said, because I agree with what you said. But at the same time, this is so unique that this deserves thinking outside the box. And to preserve a home like this and to put in just 10 homes and to make it look like you're trying to preserve that look, that deserves everything we've got in our toolbox to help you do that. I like the rural historic nature. And let's see, the other thing is, do we have, I asked Vernon that a minute ago, do you know? I was going to ask if there was any written ordinance or written policy that we actually wrote down that says that we can't have a gated community anymore.
Well,
Yeah.
and I'm going to look at Amy and
Sure.
Kelly too,
Yeah.
because we do require homes to front on public streets. And I know Amy can elaborate a little bit further on that.
Yes. All lots, all single-family lots are required to face public right-of-way, and that's how it's written in the ordinance. And so a gate does not have public access. And so it's not a sentence that says no gates in the ordinance, but that's the logical step that we've made, is
Well,
that
like-
no gate, it's a public right-of-way, which means
Okay.
all access, public,
That's right.
city-owned right-of-way.
So like enclaves could never happen again today, Ashton Park could never happen again today, right?
Correct, no gates.
I'm not sure I want that.
Well, I don't-
You know, I think that's something we need to look at. Maybe everybody likes that, but I don't think that that fits everywhere again. Again, it's putting everything in a box, zipping it up into a box. And I think, Bernie, if you were to take and put together a reserve fund, I would do something different. I don't know how you do this. I don't know if this is even legal, but people are buying homes in there. I would have an upfront fund for each homeowner to buy into, and you take that fund and you put it into a reserve fund for that pond and for the street. And
I was just gonna do a bond.
yeah, and then what you do is, you know, people come into these HOAs and we all have our reserve funds that we have to use to fix things. So when you have that padded up front, and then you can work from there, then you could take care of it. What is saying that we couldn't let you gate that? That's where I was getting at. Why couldn't you gate that if you wanted to? And if you didn't want to, that's fine too. But I do think that, I love the idea of that road and the way you've got that situated. And I'd hate to see you have to change that. I think it's really unique. And I think we need uniqueness in this town. We don't need everything to have curbs and gutters and density and everything. We've got to get outside the box on some of these things. And a home like this and that property deserves something really special. So I applaud you for thinking outside the box on it, and I hope that we continue to do that.
Alderman Martin?
Bernie, I can't think of anything you've done here that I don't approve of, so this just goes right along with it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Shore?
Yeah, I got it. Can I go up there?
Sure.
Should have brought my jacket.
I take my mask off for this one.
So fortunately, I won't be here long enough to vote for this, so I'll because you won't have it by the next two meetings, I don't imagine. I do live on the corner of Boyd Mill and Glass Lane, and I actually was the one that developed the 3 lots that are on Glass Lane. So I've got a long history with this piece of property. I did tell Bernie that no one wants them to tear down the foliage to put up new foliage. I mean, that doesn't make any sense because it's 15 feet deep at some points in times, and it's kind of nice having that, especially less for me than it is for the people that live that face Glass Lane with their houses. Mine doesn't. Mine faces Boyd Mill. And the last thing we want is, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Glass Lane people and a lot of people on Boyd Mill, is to have them come down and tear all those bushes down and put sidewalks in, because nobody walks down that road except for me taking my dogs to Boyd Mill where there is a sidewalk. And the interesting thing about this site, except for on Glass Lane, you've got sidewalks all the way around it right now. So you've got sidewalks. One, you have a 12-foot multi-purpose lane going on Highway 96. You have a sidewalk on Boyd Mill, and you have sidewalks all through the park, and actually on Boyd Mill Avenue, because I walk there every day with my dogs. So it really has sidewalks, and it has access to those sidewalks. And so, if people want to walk, they can walk, and there is plenty of green space. They didn't mention that, but like 40? I mean, like 40% built, at least 50% green space. And at the neighborhood meeting, I will say there were 25 or 30 people, homes represented, and when we got done and with this design, we basically had a unanimous approval that this is a good plan for that piece of property. The house has fallen down, and Miss Inman just can't take care of it herself. And if something doesn't happen soon, not that it'll be, you can fix anything, but you don't want to fix anything. You want this house to stay there. And I was thinking, and this is not, it's sort of relative. One of my favorite places to go on vacation is to Williamsburg, Virginia. And they have restored all those homes, and they've made it, and if they made them comply with standards of Williamsburg, they'd have sidewalks and curbs and gutters and everything down the Gloucester Street in Williamsburg, Virginia, and it just wouldn't look good. And it wouldn't look like it should, because it was built back in the 1760s. This house was built in the 1850s, 1840s, and if it had sidewalks, it wouldn't look good either, because it didn't have sidewalks when it started. It had a gravel drive that came up through those maple trees, and you saw the front entranceway. That is what Bernie's trying to recreate. And he has to have some lots to do that, because out of the goodness of his heart, he's not going to fix it. Ann Inman's been trying to sell this house for as long as I've lived there, which is 17 years. And she can't sell it because it needs too much work, and it takes too much money to do it. And when you get done, you can't do it unless you just are so wealthy that it doesn't matter. And she hadn't been able to find that person yet. So the neighbors are excited about it. I know Miss Inman is excited about it. And we agree that this is, well, first of all, we'd love for some really rich person to come in and fix that house and leave the 17 acres all alone, fix a pond, and that would be perfect. Well, come on, write the damn check, will you? I mean, but that's not going to happen. It just isn't. And I think we deserve to preserve this house and preserve it in as close to the way it was when it was built as we possibly can. And if that means that there's some standards that can't be met, it ain't going to be the end of the world. It's going to be the preservation of a historic home that needs to be preserved in this community. I will say that I was one of the ones that was involved in the development at Forest Crossing, and there's a mansion there, and we did not do a good job with that.
We got sidewalks all around it, we got condos all around it, and it has disappeared basically from the historic side of things. I don't want this to happen to this building, this house again. And we owe it to this house. We owe it to this house and to this community to preserve it. Because there ain't gonna be another one like it built ever again. And so you need to think about that when we're thinking about modifications of standards and how we do. And I'll finally talk about that stinky old pond. You know, it's been that way forever. Well, since Gordon Inman fixed it in the 70s. And it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And truly, unfortunately, I live far enough away that I don't catch the odor. But the 3 houses that are worth over nearly $2 million apiece down there, they can't sit out on their front porch in the summertime because it smells that bad. And I mean, literally, you could you could walk across that lake. It is just filled with junk. And even the ducks won't even go in it. That's pretty bad when you think about that. But so this is like as close to perfect as you could possibly get from someone who's never built anything that anyone's been ashamed of in this community. It has always been right, and it's always been good. And everybody talks about the stuff that he's doing. We want people to come to this community and say, look what they were able to do with this old house. And
John,
he's
my
going to.
first cousin owned that house for 20 years.
Yeah.
And Mark and Ruth Ann lived there, and man, that was a beautiful lake. They kept it maintained.
Yes.
They kept it had an aerator in it, and it was clean as a pin. I don't know what's caused it to.
It's lack of care. It's duckweed in it, and you have to maintain it and clean it
We
all
had
the
it
time.
mowed all the way down to the water's edge.
Yeah.
It needs to be mowed and cleaned up now.
Well, you can't do that now, but
kind of-
that's okay. That's a whole nother issue, isn't it? Mowing it down the water's edge. Okay, I'm gonna be quiet, but it is our moral obligation as a city to protect this home and keep it in the standard in which it was originally built.
Heck yeah.
So I'll sit down with that.
Don't leave, John. Please don't leave, because I need to talk to you before you leave.
Who does?
I do. Don't leave.
Was that an order?
Yes, it was.
Yes, ma'am.
It most definitely was.
Yes, ma'am.
Mayor Moore, comments?
I don't think I can add a lot more to any of the comments that have been made. And I do want to go home in a little while, so I'm not going to say much, so Marshall, let me go.
Commissioner Allen, do you
Real
have
quick,
some more to add?
I'm worried about
Alderman-
streets not to standard, 'cause
Right.
that always comes
Okay.
back on us.
Alderman
Right.
Berger, before, I would need to address something you said. Staff wasn't going to say it to you because you're an alderman. They have to be here with you, but I can. We had a discussion, I'm not a lawyer, but I had a discussion with a lawyer about this gated community. As long as city dollars build that street and maintain that street, whether it's just standards or not, you can't stick a gate on it. I've got to be able to drive my car down that street because I pay tax dollars, okay? So our lawyer, Billingsley, remember we had this discussion because there's another developer in here talking about putting a gated community up there. We talked about this. If it's a city street built with city dollars and all that, so we had this, so I'm just saying, in case somebody listening, not you, in case somebody listening gets that idea out there, So we got to have public access. We got to have public. I just wanted to make sure nobody was out there getting that idea. Okay, we want to lay that to rest. Okay, thank you, because I was getting hot up here thinking about it. Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Thanks,
Okay.
We'll have that as our final thoughts on that
Okay.
project. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good luck with it. Item number 4, discussion of the Williamson County Growth Plan update. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I've heard you 4 times already this week, so you don't have to go through all of that.
There's no presentation tonight. Just some brief remarks to update everybody. We are in full swing with the Williamson County Growth Plan update, specifically looking at Franklin's urban growth boundary. I did attach the mailer and the map that were sent out to approximately 1,000 property owners. For properties that are proposed to be added or removed from the UGB, we sent those property owners mailers. And on that mailer is the project webpage and then the community meetings that were held this week. and my contact information as well. So mailers were sent out, meetings were held this week, but there were hybrid meetings. We had in-person option as well as the Zoom option. We also have open office hours tomorrow from 8 to 5 in the City Hall training room, so at the end of the building here. And then open office hours again next Wednesday, the 29th, also in the training room. We have a survey that's out right now. We have a growing distribution list, so we're hitting people on email as well. We're trying to get some pointed and specific feedback from property owners. Our phones have been ringing off the hook. We've gotten a lot of emails, and we're responding to all of those. We're going to take all this feedback and refine the working boundary, because that's what it is. It's a working draft boundary, and we'll refine that, and we are planning to present an update at the October 12th BOMA work session. It'll be for discussion purposes. And then beyond that, there's a growth symposium planned for October 19th at the Enrichment Center. It'll be in the morning. And ultimately, we're trying to build a consensus this fall. We're trying to create a draft boundary that staff can support, that the community generally supports, and that you all can support, and that we can turn over to the coordinating committee when their time comes and they are convened, probably in early 2022. So just wanted to provide this board with some brief remarks and let you all know kind of where things lie with the UGB update. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Any commissioner or alderman comments on that? None? Adjourn this meeting.